Looks like my marriage burned to the ground. Airports. Tyler Bond hated them. They were a necessary evil in his line of work, but he hated them. They hurt his marriage. Hordes of people crowded into them, waiting to be airlifted to their destination, treated like cattle. In fact, today was about 10 times better than it usually was for him. Maybe he should reconsider his attitude about this and just accept that this was the way it was, and that he was being paid well to put up with it. 10 years ago, he had to stand in line to check in, then stand in line at security, and then stand in line to get on the plane, where again he had to stand in line, waiting for those in front to stow their carry-on luggage in the overhead compartments while he slowly made his way to the back of the plane. Now he didn't need to talk to anyone unless he wanted to. With his own and other avid travelers' experiences, he never checked luggage again, because he took a moderate amount of stuff with him. Participating in the frequent flyer program dramatically reduced wait times at the security desk at most airports. Years of flying across the country once a month, plus another shorter flight each month, elevated his status with his favorite airlines to the point where he usually no longer had to sit in the back of the plane and could take a seat right after the first-class passengers. His credit card even gave him access to the lounge, which at Miami Airport was pretty good. But even though it felt a lot better today, he still didn't usually enjoy it. Today, however, in the lounge, Veronica, an attractive middle-aged woman looking several years younger than him, wearing a frilly dress with a deep neckline partially covered by a cardigan when she wanted to, chatted with him about her recent flight experiences. Toward the end of the conversation, she let the cardigan not cover her cleavage so much, salivating. He, too, willingly and candidly shared his stories of traveling to dangerous places, and at the end of their conversation, she handed him a business card. He quickly glanced at the card, not wanting to take his eyes off Veronica, and found that she was also from Denver, which led to a few more minutes of conversation. Instead of taking his flight, she had one more stop to make before returning home, probably for the best, too. After chatting pleasantly, they parted ways, walking to their respective exits. Was she flirting with him? Maybe. Probably. He wished he'd known that while they were talking. Decades of marriage had dulled his sense of flirting. Damn. Not that anything had or could come of it. He'd been 100% faithful during his 26 years of marriage and wasn't about to change a thing. This was one of his trips across the country, and despite his dislike of airports, he was in a decent mood because of the previous conversation in the lounge and some success on the trip that would pave the way for an extra bonus next quarter. He was just getting on his plane to a larger economy-class seat to return home when his phone rang. He was just about to put it into airplane mode when it happened. It was his wife, Rebecca. Sigh. It was still very early in Denver for her to be awake, much less calling. Given the morning hour, he wondered, did it matter? Probably. His finger hovered over the phone to answer it, but then he turned it off. If it was one of his children, he'd answer it, of course, but whatever that grumpy broad, his wife, wanted could wait. He recognized that the journey that had begun 10 years ago, though limited in size, had not been easy for them, and should not have caused so much controversy. He was seldom away more than 6 nights a month, but he guessed it had become too much. Women. He wished his wife had been more understanding. When he had told her years ago about his new position and the increase in salary and bonuses, his wife had practically pushed him out the door, and then she had welcomed him and his money with outstretched arms and legs. Now, despite his attempts to groom her and spend more time with her, she is estranged. Recently, his boss told him that if he accepted a new position requiring more travel, he could make even more money. He did not mention this offer to his wife. It wouldn't have done any good. The whole situation saddened him, but he still had his children who were fantastic. He loved his children. His daughter Jamie had just entered pharmacy school in the fall, and his son Mike, like his father, was studying hard in summer courses to get a head start on his first year of engineering. Both parents were expectedly proud. He missed participating in their activities and missed their formation. He assumed Rebecca had too, because she seemed sad lately. Whatever their current problems, they had raised 2 exceptional children, smart, funny, hard-working, selfless, humorous. They have been praised often over the years, He would like to see them more often. Since the children now had their own apartments nearby, he considered swapping this huge house for a smaller one. But Rebecca wouldn't hear of it. In addition to working for the hospital as one of its financial executives, she served on several charitable boards, and the house, the neighborhood, and the neighbors fit her image. A little extra maintenance on the house and yard compared to a smaller home was one of the sacrifices Tyler had to make for his wife's social standing. Sigh. The flight was tiring, as it often was, or rather he languished in the long flight. He wasn't in the mood to watch a movie, and he hadn't gotten much sleep during the trip, so he decided to close his eyes for a few minutes while he had the chance. He was awakened by the impact of the plane hitting the ground. It surprised him that he had slept for almost the entire flight. He turned his phone back on and it looked like something had exploded. Voicemails and text messages from everyone around him. He called his daughter. "Oh my God, Dad! Thank God you called!" "Jamie, you knew I was on the plane. What's going on? Everyone's been trying to get through to me, but no one's told me anything." "Well, I'm not doing either of those things right now. Stop by my place, since I'm on my way home. Mike will be here too." "Jamie, you can't just leave me like this. Are you and your brother okay? Is your mom okay? Is anyone hurt?" "I'm sorry, Dad. It's just one big mess. Nobody got hurt. Well, no one we love. I'll explain everything I know when I see you." "What the hell?" Tyler drove from Denver International to his daughter's house near the university in record time. He knocked hastily on the door, and when he entered, she was nearly in tears. He saw his son sitting gloomily in one of the chairs. "What's wrong, baby?" "Oh, Daddy, we're so sorry. It's a huge mess." That's when Mike spoke. "More like a total mess." "Tell me what happened," Jamie continued. "We didn't mean for this to happen. It just piled up like a snowball." "You didn't say what was going to happen?" "Well, we wanted some of it to happen, but not like this." "Honey, you still haven't told me anything. Tell me now." "Okay." Sighs. "Okay. It started about a month ago when you were last in Boston. I was going to come and visit my mom during lunch, and when I drove up, I saw an unfamiliar Tesla S parked in your spot in the garage, which was weird. I didn't recognize the car and didn't know who it could be. From the street, I could see the lights on in the house, and from the way the shadows moved, I noticed someone walking through the house toward the garage. I called my mom on her cell phone, but she didn't answer. I waited a few more minutes and called her again. When she answered, I asked her if she was home, and she said she was still at work and that she would talk to me later. I suspected that was obviously a lie, so I hung up and looked at the house some more, wondering what to do. After a while, I moved my car out of sight and crept over to look out the garage window. Mom's car was there, next to the Tesla. I was furious. I went back to my car and called Mike and told him what I had seen. I wanted to know who was with Mom. Suppressing my anger, I watched for the first 6 hours, waiting for him to leave, and Mike came and watched until he left at 7 the next morning. Mike followed him to work in a large office building in Cherry Creek, walked in a few minutes after him, and asked the security guard if he knew the man who had just walked in. The man gave Mike a name, and Mike called me. "We didn't know what to do. I called my mom the next morning, disgruntled that she hadn't called me back, and have been cold with her ever since. On your last trip, we observed the same thing. So, Mike and I decided that something had to be done about it." Mike intervened. "I was with you when you were checking smoke detectors a few weeks ago, and I saw one in the garage, so I had an idea that we thought was funny at the time. I guess it's not so funny now. We were afraid to tell you because we knew you'd want to catch them red-handed and probably kill the bastard and end up killing Mom too, accidentally or intentionally, and go to jail. We didn't want that. We wanted to figure out a way to get them out and embarrass them at the same time. I advised Jamie to sneak into the garage around midnight and cause one of those unexpected sparks that are known to happen to electric cars from time to time to create enough smoke to set off the alarm. With the smoke detectors in good working order, I didn't think anything would happen except for the fire department showing up. That's where Tyler came in. I guess that means you didn't know there was a heat detector in the garage and not a smoke detector?" Mike had a look of surprise on his face and exclaimed, "Oh, crap! That's why it took so long for the alarm to go off." Tyler shook his head. Jamie intervened. We thought the arrival of the fire department would cause an embarrassment, but it wasn't enough, so I was involved too. Tyler looked stunned to see how everything his children had told him was beginning to clear up. He asked, "It looks like my marriage burned to the ground. Is our house still standing?" Jamie answered, "What? Oh yeah, well, almost all of it." "Oh my God." I went into the house after my mom left for work, and both times there was one of my mom's 1.5-liter bottles of wine in the trash can. I know she likes to keep the bottles cold most of the time, so this seemed like the perfect opportunity to compound their embarrassment. These days, it's actually easy to buy Viagra or its equivalent online, so I ordered it. You know I'm studying to be a pharmacist, and with my chemistry degree, it wasn't hard to turn pills into liquid. Tyler shrieked, "You didn't do that!" I'm afraid I did. Yesterday afternoon, I snuck into the house. I looked in the wine fridge, and there Mom had put her 1.5-liter bottle in the upright drawer, already opened, corked, and standing upright. It turned out there was only about 1 or 2 cups missing, so I poured my mixture, shook the bottle around, and carefully put it back in place without leaving a trace of my presence. We figured that when the fire department arrived, they would have to run out of the house and he wouldn't be able to hide his euphoria, making her and her lover obvious to all the neighbors. That's where Mike stepped in. Shortly before midnight, I climbed through the garage window I had opened the last time I was there. It took a while, but using a charging outlet in the car and some tools, I was able to create an arc a few times, just enough to get the metal around it hot. I don't know if his car was malfunctioning or something, but suddenly a rain of sparks sprinkled down. I knew it would set off the fire alarm, at least that's what I thought, and scurried out of there as fast as I could. Apparently more than that happened after I left. I never thought the battery itself would catch fire. I think it was because before the fire department could get there, not only his car caught fire, but my mom's car caught fire as well. By this point, the house alarm was going crazy, so the whole neighborhood heard it. Jamie said, "You know how nervous Mom gets when she's upset. It's like her brain just disconnects from her body. This is where the story gets interesting." Tyler said, "More interesting than my wife cheating on me and my house burning down?" Jamie interjected, "We told you it didn't burn down." "Oh, great." Anyway, during the few minutes that I was allowed to talk to my mom this morning, she told me that she jumped out of bed when she heard the alarm. She shook her lover Eric, but he didn't wake up. She knew he had a lot to drink, but she couldn't wake him up. She thought he was dead and became hysterical. She called 911 from her home phone and started screaming, "Fire! Call an ambulance!" She then grabbed his ankles and started dragging him out of the bedroom toward the exit, without realizing or thinking that they were both naked. He was too heavy for her to get down the stairs, so she kept dragging him. Again, she didn't realize he was lying face down. Remember how I told you there was a wallpapered carpet nail at the entrance to your bedroom that stuck out enough to snag one of my socks a few months ago when I was visiting? Well, it looks like you either never hammered it in, or another one came out, because guess what? Mom dragged Eric through that area, and he must have gotten heavy enough, or the nail popped out harder and snagged him. That's where the fact that he was drinking that Viagra and wine comes into play. Not only did the carpet nail split his testicles, which were dangling underneath him, but his hardware, which was still hard, and the nail split it and completely up his belly and face, too. Because the house was dark and he was unconscious, his mom didn't realize it and kept dragging him down the stairs. Slap. It looked like he had abrasions from falling to the pavement and a nasty gash on his face. At that point, Tyler didn't get too upset about it and replied, "And don't tell me." Mike took it upon himself to continue the story. The house alarm must have woken up the rest of the neighbors, because there seemed to be quite a few onlookers when Mom pulled her lover, both with bare asses, out the front door in front of everyone. Timothy from across the street even filmed the scene on his phone and sent it to me. Here, watch. Tyler couldn't believe what he was seeing. There was video on Mike's phone of his wife's naked wife pacing naked from the front of the house, and sure enough, Eric's head cracking against the concrete as he descends the stairs, and Rebecca continues to drag him. Either she really was on adrenaline or she was stronger than he thought. The ambulance and fire brigade arrived immediately afterward. He watched as the fire brigade ran into the house to open the garage door and began hosing down everything in the garage and houses around that area. The ambulance attendant walked over to his naked wife, covering her with a plaid, and rolled Eric over. Tyler could tell he was winning against her lover in that comparison. Mike told him. Did you know that these electric cars send an alert to the owner's phone when something happens to the car? Apparently, Eric's wife, Francine, got the message and saw that her husband's car was at someone's house instead of at the airport where he was supposed to be and came to investigate. As Tyler continued to watch, he saw that Eric could not be revived. He was alive, but unconscious. A gurney was wheeled out of the ambulance, but before he could be strapped in, Francine appeared and flipped it over, sending her husband flying to the sidewalk. He would need more than a few stitches to fix the bleeding and a new cut on his head. What a shame. Tyler couldn't recall ever seeing anyone so angry. She landed a few good punches to his groin, continuing to kick until she could be pulled away from him. When they put him back on the gurney, he was still bleeding. He wondered if Eric had been unconscious when they tried to set it right. He hoped he had been. Rebecca stood stunned as at least a dozen or so of her socially minded neighbors watched the tragicomedy unfold. Francine turned to Rebecca, but instead of hitting her, she ripped off her plaid, leaving Rebecca naked again, at least for a moment, until another plaid was found and she was unable to cover herself. Seeing his wife naked in their yard, Tyler thought, "Damn, I'm going to miss this." However, the neighbors certainly didn't miss them or her leftover groin strip when she shaved. Shame. When the police officers arrived, the fire already seemed to have been contained, except for Eric's car, which was still spitting sparks. Francine, practically foaming at the mouth, was yelling at the police to arrest Rebecca. For what? No one knew, but an officer took her, clearly shaken, to the back of the patrol car, just to keep her away from Francine and the gawkers. Jamie said, "We knew Eric was married to Francine, but we didn't know she was the daughter of the district attorney. It seems she or he had enough power that the decision was made to take my mom to the station and keep her in the interrogation room the rest of the night wearing the same plaid. She was released around 6 in the morning when she tried to call you, but you didn't answer, and some people say God is not merciful. The problem is, since Eric didn't wake up right away, he was checked by a toxicologist, and the only weird thing that showed up was traces of Viagra. When his wife heard this, she exploded because he has a heart condition and would never take something like that. At least that's what she said. The medics said the fire was lucky because it meant he got to the hospital early enough for them to prevent him from going into a coma. Otherwise, it could have gotten really bad." Tyler asked, "Worse than that?" Mike jumped up. "The police put your mom back in the interview room and went back to your house this morning to try and gather some evidence. But during the fire, the firemen knocked the bottle and glasses to the floor, breaking them. With all the water, bottle smashing, and wine residue washing away, there is no clean evidence to collect. I went in earlier, and the only thing the police found there was a trail of blood going down the steps and out the door. I suspect now they are just confused. Everyone thinks he took Viagra, even though he shouldn't have, and without any evidence, I'd be surprised if it was held for long. Besides, they were able to get the Tesla out of the garage and took it away. Francine was all over the news this morning. It wasn't pretty." Tyler asked, "Where's your mom now?" Jamie replied, "She's still at the police station. They said they would call us when we could pick her up. I'm really sorry, Dad. We should have just told you instead of trying to get revenge. We were so angry, but we only made a bad situation worse." While his kids looked scared, a smile slowly began to spread across Tyler's face. He stood up and said, "I appreciate what you guys tried to do. I really do. It means a lot to me. Honestly, I don't think you guys did all that bad. All things considered, I think it worked out pretty well. I'm going home. Your mother's gonna need you both. I'll let you two decide who picks her up from the station, but not me. They get it." On the way home, Tyler stopped at the bank and transferred half the money from their accounts to a new account in his name only. He would take care of the rest of the finances later tonight or tomorrow. He stopped at the local market and picked up some garbage bags to take his clothes to the cleaners because he suspected that everything in the house now smelled like smoke. As he approached the house, he could see, but didn't really pay much attention to the fire damage. A blood trail across the porch and down the steps was clearly visible. He smiled. Entering the front door, which was closed but not locked, he saw the blood trail going up the stairs. The part of the kitchen leading to the garage looked like a war zone. Too bad. Not paying any more attention to the blood, he went into the master bedroom and bagged all his clothes to take them to the cleaners. His insurance company would get the bill. He saw that the bed was still disassembled, and the thought saddened him for a moment, but only for a moment. He knew what he was going to do. The obvious starting point was to divorce the fool, then split the finances, find an apartment, and take more trips with higher pay, using his newfound free time to visit his kids more often and have more fun. He asked himself if Mike could forward him the video so he could send it to local news stations. Rebecca's volunteer organizations would be so happy to have one of their board members increase their visibility. As he loaded the last bag into his car, a police car pulled up to him. He was asked to show some identification, and he did. After hearing what had happened, and perhaps even having been there or seen the video, one of the officers felt uncomfortable but asked anyway, "Are you going to be okay?" In a split second, all the events of the day spun over and over in Tyler's head like one of those old-fashioned wheels people spin on game shows. When the wheel in his head stopped at Veronica's business card, a wide grin appeared on Tyler's face, and he replied, "I'll be just fine, officer. I'll be fine." The end.